Hi, it's Makaela here. Thanks for listening to my podcast. What you're about to listen to is an old episode of my podcast, The Midlife Awakening, which has now been replaced with the Deliberately Transformed Woman podcast. You'll still find some golden takeaways in these old episodes, but if you're the type of person who wants to discover and let go of the things that are holding you back in life by busting through fear and procrastination, overcoming imposter syndrome, and stepping into a life that is fulfilling, courageous, and intentional, then my new podcast episodes, starting from episode 21, are the ones you're looking for. You're listening to episode 13 of the Midlife Awakening podcast with Makaela Moore. Welcome to the Midlife Awakening podcast. I'm Makaela Moore, your host and certified transformation coach. I'm a 40-something woman who nerds out on brain science and believes every woman should be financially independent. This podcast is for women navigating their midlife who want to learn the secrets to unlocking their brain and freeing themselves from everything that holds them back so they can create lasting change in their lives, because everything is possible. Join me each week for conversations about the midlife and tips and tricks to hack your subconscious brain so you can deliberately transform your life and ultimately create your own financial security. First time here? Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Enjoy! Welcome to episode 13. I hope you are all doing magically today. Now, today's episode is actually sponsored by my free 10-day mindset challenge, Transformation Awaits, which begins December 1st. So if you're a regular listener of this podcast, then you will know that I nerd out on all the brain science, and you'll also know that I love sharing that knowledge and teaching and coaching, inspiring and empowering other women. So my free challenge, Transformation Awaits, is a great way to get started if you would like to start making some lasting changes in your life using some of the things that I've learned about mindset, like brain science, personal responsibility, limiting beliefs, and how to use all of that to get unstuck, get out of victimhood, stop the self-sabotage, realize your self-worth and gain confidence. 92% of New Year's resolutions do not stick, and that is because we try to make changes in our external world and all we get is our habits. Transformation Awaits is going to give you the blueprint to begin your transformation so that you can hit 2020 with a fresh new outlook and new strategies for dealing with whatever life throws at you. If you haven't already signed up, just go to makaelamore.com/transformation, or the link is below in the show notes. The challenge starts this Sunday, 1st of December, and I promise it will be super easy, simple and fun, because at this time of year, who needs anything too heavy, right? I hope to see you in there. I have been welcoming ladies into the group the last few days, and I just feel it's going to be a magical little group full of connection and transformations. It's going to be amazing, so go and sign up. So that brings me to today's topic, which has basically come about by something that really pissed me off. I was flicking through Instagram last week and I saw a post from a very popular site saying that they're sick of seeing all these life coaches in their feed and that they had actually done a podcast about this. So naturally I had to go and have a listen. Basically, they spent 10 or 15 minutes absolutely trashing life coaches, and their message was that all life coaches are dodgy and that we're representing ourselves on social media as living this seemingly perfect and unrealistic life. You know, the living in Bali under a waterfall laptop lifestyle far away from reality was how they'd painted it. And that we, as in us life coaches, should just all stop. Apparently, all we do is tell people they are living crappy lives, that they should stop working their 9 to 5, and that they should be happy all of the time. So, I am here to debunk those myths right now, because none of what they said is true about most life coaches, or at least the genuine ones anyway. So, there was a tiny bit of merit to what they were saying, which was that there is an element of that living in Bali laptop lifestyle and that everyone calls themselves a coach these days. There are a lot of people doing that, But to be honest, they are the minority. It's just that they're the ones that we see because they've got the good marketing. The majority of the good, genuine life coaches who are trained as coaches, not just calling themselves coaches, are out there really helping people. They understand how the brain works, why people do what they do. They understand human behavior, and they have proper tools and techniques for helping people to reprogram their brain. They also follow a proper process of coaching that may take 1 or 2 sessions or several months because every client is different. I remember I was speaking with a woman who was advertising herself. This was, a year or so ago. She was advertising herself as a high-level coach, and she still does. I had managed to score a half-hour coaching call with her, which I must admit, I was I remember I was excited that I'd scored this call, but I was also wondering how much someone can really coach you in a half an hour when they know nothing about you beforehand. But I went along with it anyway. I was half considering being a client of hers, and I knew this was a good chance to suss her out. So I started talking about a fairly mundane, routine topic that most coaches would be able to coach someone through. And I asked her if she had any tools or techniques for helping people deal with certain issues. I can't exactly remember what issue I chose to talk to her about, but her response to me was, I just recommend everybody have a good cry, let it out, and get on with things. It was in that moment that I couldn't think of another single thing that I would want to talk to this woman about. So I kindly ended this supposed coaching call at precisely 17 minutes in. That is not a trained life coach. That is just someone who has some very good marketing, a big following, and thinks she knows what people need to do in order to get through life's struggles. This woman openly talks about making well over $1 million a year and living the high life in Bali. But the reality is that most people who are boasting about making that sort of money are not telling the whole truth. They are not talking profit, they're talking gross figures, before all the expenses of staff and software and advertising and all the things. And that's if they're even being honest about it at all. So many of those supposed 7-figure earners aren't making anywhere near that. So to put things into perspective, the average life coach, and these figures were statistical data that was presented to me in my coaching training. The average life coach makes maybe $100,000 a year. The really good ones will make more, but that all comes down to their marketing, their offering, and their programs. I have several coaches, a couple of coaches I have in the US that I'm part of their group programs, and I have a couple of Australian coaches. So I've got the one who trained me and certified me, and I have a business coach and I have another mentor. So some of my coaches, particularly the two in the US, they are actually making upwards of, $5 to $10 million a year. But some of them are not. Some of them are just making $100,000 to $200,000 a year. And that's okay, because each of them sets their business up differently and serves different markets. And I've got to say that, of all those genuine life coaches out there, most of them aren't living that high life or that laptop lifestyle in Bali. Most of us are living in regular houses, in regular suburbs. We sit in the school pickup line. We have kids at school. We go and do our shopping just like everybody else. Like, we are just normal people doing a job of helping other people. So let's set aside the money, because they all make different amounts and some of them aren't honest about it anyway. And let's just look at what they're actually doing. So I want to tell you about how a good coach operates, what they do, and how they impact lives. So firstly, a good coach knows the ins and outs of how our brain works. And you know that that's what I'm all about, because that's what I'm constantly talking about in my podcast. We don't need to know every single thing that there is to know about the brain, because we're not neuroscientists, but we know how the conscious and subconscious brains work and interact at the very least. We have a solid understanding of human behavior and why people do what they do. We understand cause and effect when it comes to people's emotions and motivations. We ask a bucket load of questions because coaching is all about helping the client to see things for themselves and to have realizations of their own. A coach is not there to tell you what to do. We don't prescribe anything other than to become consciously aware. We are not therapists that sit and listen to you drudge up your past for a whole hour and then ask how that made you feel, because dredging up past life events just reaffirms them to your brain and can really trigger a lot of people. A coach is not necessarily someone who has already done what they coach, or maybe they have done it, but they don't need to be the best that there is out there. A coach does not do the work for you. Just think of a sports coach as that example. They empower the players to achieve what they want, which is to play well and hopefully win. And that sports coach may never have even played that sport, let alone at an elite level. And that's because coaching is all mental. It is all about empowering the client to take responsibility for their own results and giving them tools and knowledge to understand themselves so they can make lasting changes in their own lives. A coach helps a person to unlock their superpowers by discovering and unblocking limiting beliefs that were more often than not there since childhood. You've heard me talk about stories before and how our childhood brains misinterpret information and events. And because us humans are meaning-making machines, as kids, we make things mean something they are not. And that's where all of our stories come from. Because what we think we are seeing is only our interpretation of what we are actually seeing. We all see, hear, and think through the lens of our own perception, based on whatever stories were created for us as kids. And because we interpret it as kids and what we made it mean, we carry that into adulthood and we make interpretations of situations and events, and they're actually not factual. A coach will help you to discover those stories. They will help you to see how the world really is, like you are waking up for the first time and discovering that you've been wearing these really murky glasses all your life. And then all of a sudden you get sparkly clean new lenses and you can see the world and your life for what it really is. The trouble with us humans is that we don't even realize that we are looking at life through these really murky lenses until we take them off. And that is the job of the coach, to help you discover that and then to guide you through the obstacle course of life. It is not the job of the coach to take you back to fix problems, because that in most cases just can't happen. But what we can do is to help you see things from a different perspective, so that you are then able to move forward in a different direction without the old baggage weighing you down, because nobody needs to be carrying around old baggage, and yet so many of us are doing it whether we realize it or not. A good coach will help you realize that you can leave the baggage at the door, and then they will help you walk out that door only looking forward to that bright, shiny life that awaits you. Now, I know I've used a lot of metaphors here, so I'm going to try and explain it with some real examples. This is what a real coaching session looks like. For my one-on-one clients, I initially send them a lengthy questionnaire and I have them complete this prior to any coaching sessions. The questionnaire not only gives me a ton of information about them, but it asks them questions in such a way that their brain is being primed for change. You see, our brains like to be super efficient, so they keep doing and thinking the same things over and over. To introduce something new to the brain requires a neuron to fire off, and then a neural pathway is created. And this is all energy sapping stuff for our brain, so if it can avoid it, the brain will stay in its own lane, conserving its energy. But when we start introducing new thoughts, new concepts, ideas, and instructions to our brain, it has no option but to start creating those neural pathways. And once they are created, they grow. And each time we think the thought or do the new thing, our neural pathways grow and strengthen and become wrapped in the myelin insulation that protects them. And this is why we don't forget how to ride bikes, because as we were learning how to ride a bike, our neural pathway was growing. And every time we rode and we got better at it, that neural pathway would strengthen. Then once we took our training wheels off and we mastered the art of riding the bike, then that myelination of the pathway would occur to basically insulate it and lock it in. And it would lock in that new knowledge and skill for us to keep forevermore. So when a client goes through the questionnaire that I send them, which is full of questions that are written in such a way that they get the client thinking new thoughts and creating new pathways, it is priming their brain for the changes that lie ahead. In the first coaching session, there is some chit-chat so I can get to know the client and build a rapport with them, because they need to trust me as their coach. They need to trust me and to trust my process, otherwise it won't be as effective. I will then take my client through a series of conversations, and I'll be listening and evaluating and constantly questioning them. I will poke and prod into why they believe the things they do until they make the connections of what is real and what has been made up stories in their subconscious, skewing their perception of things. Honestly, to see a client make those connections and to see them literally wake up from the subconscious coma they were in, only to discover that there is this whole new world available to them, is truly magical. When the client can suddenly see that they have created everything in their life and that life happens for them and not to them, when they can see that they've possibly been living out of victimhood, when they can see that their own thoughts create their feelings and therefore they can choose them, is magical. When they realize that just as they are responsible for and have created everything they do or do not have in their lives, so too are they responsible and capable of creating anything that they want moving forward. And when they realize that they can reprogram their subconscious stories that have been keeping them stuck, everything changes. Once we realize all of this, life will never be the same. There will always be a before and after coaching timeline for our life. And for me as a coach to be able to deliver that is truly fulfilling. None of this means that they had a shit life beforehand. None of this means that they were not happy beforehand. It simply means that us coaches get to facilitate the beautiful process of seeing a client consciously awaken and suddenly see the world through different lenses. And that in itself is such a reward for me to be able to help and serve in that way. And back to that dreaded podcast that I listened to the other day, they were also saying that us coaches are going around telling people that they have to be happy all the time and that we will teach you how you can be happy all the time. All I have to say about that is that it's crap. Any good coach knows that, like everything in this universe, there must be balance. Where there is dark, there is also light. It is completely unrealistic to assume that a human being is going to be happy 100% of the time. So anyone selling that is not realistic at all. We experience a balance in our emotions. We generally experience 50% positive and 50% negative emotions. If we went around being happy all the time, then in effect there would be no happy. There would just be simply a regular, normal, boring state that we were feeling all the time. We don't always want to feel happy either. Like when we're grieving the death of a loved one, we want to feel sad. When we lose out on the job that we really wanted, we need to feel upset and disappointed and angry. It's how we process it. When we're standing on the edge of a cliff, I don't know about you, but I actually do want to feel some fear because it's going to keep me safe. We need a balance of positive and negative emotions in our life because the world is all about balance. And a good coach is not going to teach you how to be happy all the time because it's just not possible. A good coach will teach you how to feel into those negative feelings when they do come up and to not avoid them, because the more we practice feeling into our emotions, the less they can control us, particularly when it comes to fear. Coaching is a process and it doesn't happen overnight. Our brains are designed in a way that we need to introduce some of these concepts gradually so that the brain assimilates and processes all the new information and that you can begin that process of transformation. Just like the caterpillar, they don't become butterflies overnight. They go through a period of transformation, and that is exactly what a coach will provide for you, the guidance, support, and wisdom to get yourself through the transformation period. Awakening our conscious brain and being able to access more of our own personal inbuilt supercomputer so that we can make awesome, lasting changes in our lives and achieve whatever the bloody hell it is that we want to achieve in our time on this planet is what good coaching allows us to do. And it is what drives me each and every day because I am just so bloody passionate about it, about my own personal development and transformation and that of my husband and my daughter and of course my clients, my community, and you, my listeners. If you are curious about this magical transformational process for yourself so that you can stop making New Year's resolutions that don't stick but instead create new habits, results, and lasting change in your life, then please go and sign up for my 10-day free mindset challenge that starts this Sunday, the 1st of December. It's called Transformation Awaits. You've got absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. Just head to the link in the show notes or go to makaelamore.com/transformation to sign up. I hope I see you in there. It's going to be amazing. It will get your brain primed for making those changes. Go do it. Thanks for listening. I'll get off my soapbox now. Bye for now. And that, my beautiful friends, is another episode of The Midlife Awakening. If you'd like more inspiration or to connect with other midlifers, head on over to my Facebook group, Deliberately Transformed. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, cheers.